I'm Camille. I'm 24 years old. And 2 weeks ago, on Mother's Day, my own mother walked into the restaurant where I'd worked for 4 years and destroyed me in front of strangers. She looked directly at me in my server uniform, laughed that cold laugh I knew too well, and said loud enough for the entire dining room to hear, "Oh God, it's you. We didn't realize you still worked here. How embarrassing for us." My younger sister Kelsey giggled beside her. The elderly couple at table 9 stopped eating. The family celebrating their daughter's graduation went completely silent. Every eye in that restaurant turned to me. I felt my face burn. My hands trembled as I held the menus. But I didn't run. I didn't cry. Instead, I smiled the calmest smile of my life and said 4 words that made my manager sprint across the dining room. What happened next? Let's just say my mother's credit card wasn't the only thing that got destroyed that afternoon. But before I tell you everything, if you enjoy stories about patience, planning, and perfect revenge, please like this video and subscribe. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now let me take you back 4 years. Back to the exact moment my mother made her choice. The moment that set everything in motion. Because what she did to me that day was so cruel, so calculated, that I promised myself something. One day, she would regret it. 4 years ago, I was standing in our kitchen holding an envelope that was supposed to change everything. Inside was an acceptance letter from Whitfield University, full academic merit scholarship, top 5% of all applicants nationwide. I had worked myself half to death for this. Late nights, early mornings, tutoring jobs to pay for SAT prep courses my mother refused to fund. Every sacrifice had been worth it. My hands were shaking when I walked into the living room to tell her. She was on the phone, laughing. Pastel streamers hung from the ceiling. A banner stretched across the wall reading, "Congratulations, Kelsey," in glittering letters. My little sister had just gotten into state school. Not on merit, not on scholarships, just regular admission. Average grades, average scores, average everything. But you would have thought she'd cured cancer. Mom. I held up my letter, my voice breaking with excitement. I got in. Whitfield. Full ride. She glanced at me, covered the phone with one hand. Her face was blank. "That's nice, honey, but you know I can't afford 2 tuitions." I blinked. My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "I have a scholarship. It's free." She sighed like I was being difficult. "Kelsey needs support, Camille. An apartment near campus. Meal plan? A reliable car so she doesn't have to take the bus. Books? Spending money? You understand?" I stared at her. "But I worked for this. I earned this." She looked at me with those cold eyes I'd seen 1,000 times before. "You're different, Camille. You're a survivor. You've always been able to figure things out on your own. Kelsey needs me more." That night, I watched my mother hand Kelsey the keys to a brand new BMW, a graduation gift. White exterior, red bow on the hood. Parked in our driveway like a commercial. The car cost more than a year of college. My mother stood there beaming, taking photos while Kelsey screamed and hugged her. I got a folded bus schedule and a lecture about responsibility. See, my parents divorced when I was 14. My father left without warning. No goodbye, no forwarding address, no explanation. Just gone one morning like he'd never existed. My mother never recovered from that betrayal. And somehow, somewhere in her broken mind, she decided it was my fault. "You're just like him," she'd say whenever I succeeded at something. "Selfish, cold, always thinking about yourself." But when Kelsey did anything, even barely passing a class, it was a miracle worth celebrating. I realized something that night as I watched my sister drive away in her new car, my mother waving like a proud peacock. My mother hadn't just chosen Kelsey over me. She had been choosing her for years. Every birthday where Kelsey got the expensive gift and I got the clearance item. Every school event where she showed up for Kelsey's mediocre performances but missed my award ceremonies. Every conversation where Kelsey's minor problems were treated like emergencies and my major accomplishments were brushed aside. I was the survivor, the one who didn't need help, the one who reminded her of the man who abandoned her. So I made a decision that night. I would survive. I would go to community college, work full-time, transfer eventually. I would build something from nothing just like she always said I could. But I would also remember every dismissal, every cruel comment, every time she chose Kelsey over me. And one day, when I had built myself into something she could never tear down, I would make sure she understood exactly what she had thrown away. I didn't know it would take 4 years. I didn't know it would happen on Mother's Day in the middle of a crowded restaurant, but I knew it would happen. Community college was brutal in ways I hadn't expected. Not academically. The classes were easy compared to what I'd prepared for at Whitfield. But financially and emotionally, I was drowning. I worked 30 hours a week at Mario's Italian restaurant while taking a full course load. I lived in a basement apartment that smelled like mildew and had a landlord who forgot to fix the heat every winter. I ate ramen and day-old bakery bread I got for free from a classmate's job. Meanwhile, my mother's Facebook was a shrine to Kelsey's college experience. Photos of Kelsey's beautiful dorm room, Kelsey at fraternity parties, Kelsey studying at trendy coffee shops with $15 lattes, Kelsey's spring break in Mexico. Every post had the same caption energy. So proud of my baby girl living her best life. I wasn't tagged in a single photo. I wasn't mentioned once. When I came home for Christmas that first year, exhausted and thin, my mother looked at me with disgust. "You look terrible, Camille. Are you taking care of yourself?" Kelsey, glowing with her sorority tan and designer clothes, laughed. "She's always been like this, Mom. So serious, so stressed." I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the perfectly decorated dining table. Instead, I smiled and said, "I'm fine. Just working hard." My mother shook her head. "See, this is what I mean. You make everything so difficult. Kelsey knows how to balance life and school. Maybe you should be more like her." I left that dinner early. I didn't come home again for 2 years. But something shifted in me during that time. I stopped hoping my mother would see me. I stopped waiting for her approval. Instead, I focused on something else entirely. Building a life so undeniably successful that her rejection would eventually become her biggest regret. I transferred to Whitfield after 2 years of perfect grades. My scholarship was reinstated. I worked 2 jobs and graduated summa cum laude with a degree in business management. I networked obsessively. I volunteered. I made connections with people who actually valued competence and drive. And then I got an offer that changed everything. A restaurant group in the city wanted to expand. They were looking for someone young, hungry, and brilliant to manage their flagship location. Someone who understood the industry from the ground up. They offered me the job 3 months before graduation. I was 23 years old, and I became the general manager of Marcello's, one of the highest-rated restaurants in the state. 6-figure salary, full benefits, equity options. I didn't tell my mother. I didn't tell anyone in my family. Because by then, I had realized something important. My revenge wouldn't be about confrontation. It wouldn't be about screaming matches or petty arguments. It would be about timing. I kept working weekend shifts at Mario's, the little Italian place where I'd started 4 years earlier. Not because I needed the money, but because I loved the owner, Mario, who had treated me like family when my own family wouldn't. And because I knew, somehow, that the perfect moment would come. I just had to wait. My mother still posted about Kelsey constantly. Kelsey's mediocre marketing job that our mother described as executive level. Kelsey's mediocre boyfriend that our mother described as marriage material. Every minor milestone was a parade. I posted nothing. My profiles were private. I lived quietly, worked brilliantly, and saved my money. Then, 2 months ago, I overheard something that made my blood run cold and my heart race at the same time. Mario mentioned he was closing the restaurant for renovations. One final service on Mother's Day. A goodbye to loyal customers. It would be my last shift ever at Mario's. And that's when the idea formed. Fully. Perfectly. Beautifully. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I started planning immediately. First, I needed to ensure my mother would come to Mario's on Mother's Day. She had never visited me at work in 4 years. Not once. But I knew her weaknesses. I knew exactly how to bait the trap. I created a fake Facebook account, a friend of a friend type profile, and I left a glowing review of Mario's, tagging it as the perfect hidden gem for Mother's Day brunch, with photos of our best dishes. Then I waited. 3 days later, Kelsey shared the post. OMG, Mom, we should go here for Mother's Day. It looks so cute and you deserve something special. My mother commented with 3 heart emojis. I smiled at my laptop screen. Phase 1 complete. But I needed more. I needed witnesses. I needed the restaurant full of people who would see everything. So I did something that made Mario almost cry with gratitude. I told him I would cover the cost of a manager's goodbye special promotion. Half-price meals for families celebrating Mother's Day. I personally funded it from my Marcello's salary. Mario was confused but touched. Camille, you don't have to do this. I want to, I said. You gave me a chance when no one else would. Let me give back. The promotion went viral locally. We booked every table, 50 reservations. Standing room only. Perfect. The week before Mother's Day, I confirmed with Mario that I would work the entire shift. Front of house, serving tables, visible. Are you sure? He asked. You're the manager at Marcello's now. You don't need to serve anymore. I squeezed his hand. This is my last shift here, Mario. I want to do it right. One more time. He hugged me. He had no idea what I was really planning. Neither did my mother. I watched her confirmed reservation appear in our system. Party of 2. Kelsey and Barbara. 12:30 p.m. window table. I personally assigned that table to myself. Then I made one final preparation. The most important one. I invited my boss from Marcello's, David Chen, to come have lunch at Mario's that day. I told him I wanted him to see where I started. He was a mentor to me, someone who believed in my potential. I'd be honored, he said. I'll bring my wife. We love supporting small businesses. I reserved them the table directly next to my mother's. Everything was in place. Every piece positioned perfectly on the board. The night before Mother's Day, I couldn't sleep. Not from anxiety, from anticipation. I had played this moment in my mind 1,000 times, every possible version, but I knew the core truth. My mother would see me serving tables and she would be unable to resist humiliating me. It was her nature. She had done it my entire life. Small comments in public, little digs in front of relatives, a constant need to diminish me while elevating Kelsey. But this time, her cruelty would cost her. This time, there would be consequences she never saw coming. I woke up on Mother's Day and put on my Mario's server uniform one last time. Black slacks, white button-down, green apron with the restaurant logo. I looked at myself in the mirror. 4 years ago, I was a broken teenager whose mother told her she wasn't worth investing in. Now, I was a successful restaurant manager with a 6-figure salary, a luxury apartment, and a future so bright it hurt to look at directly. But none of that would matter if I couldn't control myself today. I needed to stay calm, professional, quiet. I needed to let my mother destroy herself. I drove to Mario's an hour early. The restaurant smelled like fresh bread and marinara sauce. Sunlight poured through the windows. Families were already lining up outside. Mario saw me and smiled. "Ready for your last shift, superstar?" I tied my apron and smiled back. "More ready than you could ever imagine." The restaurant filled quickly. By noon, every table was occupied. Families celebrating mothers, elderly couples holding hands, children in tiny dress shirts and bows. The energy was warm and joyful. I moved between tables with practiced grace, taking orders, delivering food, refilling drinks. I had done this thousands of times. My body knew the rhythm, but my mind was laser-focused on one thing. Table 7. The window seat. Still empty. 12:25 p.m. 5 minutes until my mother's reservation. I checked my reflection in the kitchen's steel surface. Hair neat. Smile ready. Hands steady. David Chen and his wife arrived at 12:28. I greeted them personally and sat them at table 8, right next to table 7. "Camille, this place is charming," David said, looking around with genuine appreciation. "I can see why you loved working here." "It taught me everything," I said honestly. "Mario gave me a chance when I had nothing." "That's the mark of a great mentor," his wife said kindly. I smiled, refilled their water, and turned just as the front door opened. My mother walked in. She was wearing a pastel pink dress and oversized sunglasses, her hair freshly colored. Kelsey followed behind her in a floral romper, scrolling on her phone. They looked like they were attending a garden party, not a small neighborhood Italian restaurant. My heart rate spiked, but my expression didn't change. Mario greeted them at the host stand. "Welcome to Mario's. Reservation for Barbara?" "Yes," my mother said with that polite voice she used for strangers. "Party of 2. We saw such wonderful reviews online." "Right this way." Mario led them directly toward me. I stood at the server station, menu in hand, back straight. This was it. My mother saw me the exact moment she reached table 7. Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened slightly. Then her expression shifted into something I knew too well. Contempt, mixed with amusement. Kelsey looked up from her phone and gasped. "Oh my God. Camille?" Every table nearby turned to look. My mother recovered quickly, but not before I saw the flash of opportunity cross her face. She loved an audience. She adjusted her sunglasses and laughed, that high, performative laugh she used when she wanted attention. "Oh God, it's you," she said loudly, loud enough for tables 6, 8, and 9 to hear clearly. "We didn't realize you still worked here." She paused, looked at Kelsey, looked back at me. "How embarrassing. For us." The words hung in the air like poison. Kelsey giggled, covering her mouth. "Mom, stop." But she didn't mean it. She never meant it. I felt the eyes of 50 strangers on me. The elderly couple at table 9 stopped eating. The family celebrating their daughter's graduation went completely silent. David Chen's face darkened. His wife's mouth fell open in shock. I could feel Mario tense behind the host stand. He started to move toward me, protective instinct kicking in, but I held up one hand. Gentle. Calm. I smiled at my mother. Not a fake smile. A real one, because this was the moment I had waited 4 years for. I looked directly into her eyes and said 4 words, clearly, loudly, so everyone could hear. "I own this restaurant." The confusion on her face was immediate. "What?" she said, her smile faltering. "I own this restaurant," I repeated calmly. "Well, I own Marcello's downtown, the flagship restaurant of the Marcello Group. I'm the general manager and part owner. But Mario here is my mentor and my friend, and today is his last day before renovations. So I came to work one final shift to honor the place that gave me my start." I watched the color drain from her face. Kelsey's phone slipped in her hand. David Chen stood up from table 8. And she's the best manager I've ever worked with, he said firmly, his voice carrying across the dining room. Youngest GM in our company's history. My mother's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I tilted my head. Now, are you ready to order? Or would you like a few more minutes? The silence in that moment was exquisite. My mother's face cycled through emotions faster than I could track. Shock, confusion, disbelief. And then, slowly, something that looked almost like fear. You own a restaurant? Kelsey said weakly, still gripping her phone. I manage and co-own Marcello's, I clarified, keeping my voice professional. We're the highest-rated fine dining establishment in the city. Zagat rated. James Beard nominated last year. I let that sink in for exactly 3 seconds. But today, I'm just here as a server, honoring my friend Mario. So, would you like to hear the specials, or do you need a minute with the menu? My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She looked at Kelsey, at me, at the tables around us that were absolutely riveted. I don't understand, my mother finally whispered. What don't you understand? I asked pleasantly. You've been working here this whole time. You never said anything about managing a restaurant downtown. I smiled. You never asked. That landed like a slap. David Chen's wife made a small noise that might have been a suppressed laugh. My mother's face flushed red. She was realizing, in real time, in front of strangers, that she had made a catastrophic miscalculation. When did this happen? She demanded, her voice rising slightly. 2 years ago, I said calmly. After I graduated summa cum laude from Whitfield. You know, the school you told me we couldn't afford? The one I paid for entirely myself while working here 40 hours a week? Her eyes darted around the restaurant. People were absolutely listening now. An older woman at table 6 was leaning forward, fully invested. Camille, I think we should talk about this privately, my mother hissed. Why? I asked innocently. You didn't mind discussing my career publicly 30 seconds ago. You called it embarrassing, in front of all these nice people. Kelsey looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. I didn't mean it like that. My mother backtracked, her voice shaking now. I was joking. You know how I joke. Do I? I asked. The question hung there. Mario appeared beside me, his hand briefly touching my shoulder in support. Camille is family, he said firmly, his Italian accent thick with emotion. She started here when she was 20 years old with nothing. She worked harder than anyone I've ever seen. She put herself through school. She made herself into something extraordinary. I'm proud of her every single day. His words broke something in my chest, but I didn't let it show. My mother looked at Mario, then back at me. She was scrambling. Camille, sweetheart, I'm so proud of you too. I just didn't know. You never told me. I stopped telling you things 4 years ago, I said quietly, when you made it clear that my accomplishments didn't matter to you. That's not true, she said desperately. When was the last time you called me? I asked. She froze. When was the last time you asked how I was doing? What I was working on? Whether I was happy? Silence. I'll save you the trouble, I continued. It's been 3 years. 3 years since you called me for any reason other than to ask if I could send Kelsey money for textbooks. Which I did, by the way. $300. Did she ever mention that? Kelsey's face went white. My mother's hands were shaking. Camille, please. Please what? I asked. Please don't embarrass you in public? The way you just tried to embarrass me? David Chen cleared his throat. Camille, why don't you take a break? I think these guests might prefer a different server. It was a lifeline. Graceful. Professional. I looked at my mother one last time. That's probably best. I'll have someone else take care of your table. I turned to walk away. And that's when my mother said the worst possible thing she could have said. You're just like your father, cold and cruel. I stopped walking. Every head in the restaurant turned, and I made a decision. I wasn't done yet. I turned back slowly. My mother's face was twisted with anger and humiliation. She had played her final card. The card she always played when she was losing, comparing me to the man who abandoned us. But this time, it didn't hurt. This time, I was ready. You're right, I said calmly. I am like my father. Do you know how I know? She stared at me, speechless. Because last year, I hired a private investigator to find him. The entire restaurant inhaled. My mother's face went gray. He didn't just disappear, Mom. You told me my whole life that he abandoned us, that he was selfish and cruel and walked away without looking back. I took a step closer to her table. But that's not what happened. He left because you gave him an ultimatum. You told him he had to choose between his dying mother in Oregon and staying here with us. You said if he left to take care of her, even for a few weeks, you'd file for divorce and make sure he never saw us again. My mother's lips trembled. That's not true. He has the emails, Mom. The text messages. I've seen all of it. Kelsey looked at our mother in horror. Mom? He chose his mother, I continued. He went to Oregon to take care of her in hospice, and you filed for divorce the day he left. You poisoned us against him, told us he abandoned his family. But the truth is, you made it impossible for him to be in our lives. You blocked his calls, returned his letters, threatened legal action every time he tried to reach out. My mother stood up abruptly, her chair screeching. Stop it. He's a good man, I said, my voice steady. He remarried. He has a stepdaughter. He's been sober for 10 years. And he runs a nonprofit helping single fathers navigate custody battles. And when I contacted him last year, do you know what he did? Tears were streaming down my mother's face now, but I didn't stop. He cried. He apologized for not fighting harder. And he asked if there was any way he could be part of my life again. The restaurant was so silent I could hear the kitchen fan humming. We have dinner once a month now, I said. He's met my boss. He came to my graduation, the one you didn't attend because you were helping Kelsey move into her third apartment in 2 years. Kelsey was crying now, too. Camille, I didn't know. Of course you didn't know, I said, looking at her. Because Mom made sure we only knew her version of the story, the version where she was the victim and everyone else was the villain. I looked back at my mother. So yes, I am like my father. I'm resilient. I'm capable. I don't need your approval or your support. But unlike you, I don't tear people down to make myself feel bigger. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. I did my best. No, I said firmly. You did what was easiest. You chose Kelsey because she was easy to control, because she made you feel needed. I challenged you. I reminded you of someone who had boundaries. So you decided I didn't deserve your love. I picked up 2 menus from the server station and placed them on their table. Your meals today are free, I said professionally. Mario doesn't charge family, even family that doesn't deserve it. I turned to Mario, who had tears in his eyes. I'm taking my break now. He nodded, unable to speak. I walked toward the kitchen, my head high. As I pushed through the door, I heard David Chen's voice carry across the restaurant. Ma'am, I don't know you, but I know your daughter. And she's one of the most exceptional people I've ever worked with. What you did just now? That says everything about you and nothing about her. The door swung shut behind me. I leaned against the cold steel of the industrial refrigerator and finally let myself breathe. My hands were shaking, my heart was racing, but I felt lighter than I had in 4 years. I stood in the kitchen for maybe 3 minutes before Mario came through the door. He didn't say anything. He just pulled me into a tight hug. I'm so proud of you, he whispered. I hugged him back, fighting tears. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause a scene in your restaurant. He pulled back and gripped my shoulders. 'Cause a scene? Camille, you just gave that dining room the best dinner theater they've ever seen, and you did it with dignity. Despite everything, I laughed. They're leaving, Mario said gently. Your mother and sister. They got up right after you came back here. I nodded. I had expected that. But everyone else? Mario grinned. Everyone else is asking for you. They want to congratulate you. Table 6 ordered champagne. Table 9 asked if you're hiring at Marcello's. I wiped my eyes. Are you serious? Dead serious. Also, your boss David told me to tell you to take the rest of the day off. He said, and I quote, "She's earned it." I took a shaky breath. I should finish my shift. Absolutely not, Mario said firmly. You just fought a war out there. You won. Now go home and rest. He was right. My adrenaline was crashing and I suddenly felt exhausted. I untied my apron for the last time and hung it on the hook by the door. 4 years of my life, summarized in a piece of green fabric with marinara stains. Thank you, Mario, I said, for everything. He kissed my forehead. You were always destined for more than this kitchen. I just gave you a place to grow. I walked back out into the dining room. The moment I appeared, table 6 started clapping, then table 8, then table 9. Within seconds, the entire restaurant was applauding. I stood there, overwhelmed, as 50 strangers celebrated me. Not because they knew my whole story, but because they had witnessed a moment of truth. A moment where someone stood up for themselves with grace and strength. David Chen raised his champagne glass. To Camille, the best of us. I smiled, waved, and walked toward the exit. As I pushed through the front door into the bright afternoon sunlight, I saw my mother's car still in the parking lot. She was sitting in the driver's seat, not moving, just staring straight ahead. Kelsey was in the passenger seat crying. For a moment, I considered walking over, saying something, offering an olive branch. But then I remembered every dismissive comment, every missed event. Every time she chose Kelsey's minor inconvenience over my major achievement. I remembered being 20 years old, exhausted from double shifts, calling her to tell her I'd made Dean's List and hearing her say, "That's nice, but can I call you back? Kelsey needs help picking a dress." I remembered graduating summa cum laude and scanning the audience for her face, knowing she wouldn't be there. I remembered every single moment I had needed a mother and gotten a critic instead, so I didn't walk over to the car. I walked to my own car. A modest sedan, paid off entirely with money I earned. I got in, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. My phone buzzed before I even made it to the main road. A text from Kelsey. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back, maybe someday, but not today. Another buzz. This time from my father. Proud of you, kid. Let's get dinner this week. I smiled and replied, absolutely. 3 more texts came in rapid succession. Mario. You forgot your last paycheck. I added a bonus. You've earned it 100 times over. David Chen. Take Monday off. You've had a day. And finally, a number I didn't recognize. Hi, this is Linda from Table 6. My son owns a marketing firm and he's looking for restaurant partners. Can I give him your info? I pulled over into a parking lot and just sat there, reading the messages over and over. 4 years ago, I had nothing but a bus pass and a broken heart. Now I had a career, a found family, a future, and a story worth telling. The week after Mother's Day was strange. I went back to work at Marcello's expecting everything to feel normal, but I was different, lighter. Like I'd been carrying a weight for so long I'd forgotten it was there until it was finally gone. David Chen called me into his office on Tuesday. Close the door, he said. I did, my heart rate picking up. Had I crossed a line? Had my public confrontation somehow reflected badly on the restaurant? He gestured for me to sit. Then he slid a folder across his desk. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside were legal documents, partnership agreements, equity transfers. I looked up, confused. "The board met yesterday," David said. "We've been discussing expansion, a second location, something more casual than Marcello's but still elevated. A place that honors where we came from while looking toward where we're going." My heart was pounding. "Okay, we want you to run it, not just manage it, own it. 40% equity, full creative control. You build the concept, the menu, the culture, everything." I couldn't breathe. "David, I don't know what to say." He leaned forward. "Camille, I've been in this industry for 30 years. I've worked with hundreds of people. But I've never met anyone with your combination of work ethic, emotional intelligence, and vision. When I saw you handle that situation with your mother last Sunday, I didn't just see someone defending themselves. I saw someone who understands that leadership is about dignity under pressure." Tears filled my eyes. "You're 24 years old and you're already better at this than people twice your age," he continued. "So here's the deal. You take 2 weeks. You think about what kind of restaurant you'd build if you had complete freedom, and then you come back and pitch it to the board." I looked down at the papers, my hands shaking. "One condition," David said. I looked up. "You name it after Mario." I burst into tears. David came around the desk and hugged me while I sobbed. Not sad tears, relieved tears, grateful tears. The kind of tears that come when you realize you finally made it to the other side of something hard. That night, I called my father. "Hey, kid." He answered warmly. "How's the famous restaurant manager?" I laughed. "Apparently famous enough to get offered my own restaurant." "What?" "Camille, that's incredible." I told him everything. The offer, the equity, the creative control. He listened, asking questions, celebrating every detail. "Your mom reached out to me," he said carefully. I went quiet. "What did she say?" "She wanted to know if I'd talked to you recently." I told her that was none of her business. "Thank you." "Camille, I need to tell you something," he said seriously. "I know I wasn't there for most of your life. I know I made mistakes. I should have fought harder for you and Kelsey. But watching you now, seeing the person you've become despite everything, I'm in awe of you." My throat tightened. "I just did what I had to do." "No," he said firmly. "You did more than survive. You built something beautiful. And you did it with integrity. That's not luck. That's character." We talked for another hour. About the restaurant concept, about his life, about the possibility of Kelsey reaching out to him too someday. When we finally hung up, I sat on my balcony and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my mother was probably telling her friends a version of Mother's Day that made her the victim. Somewhere out there, Kelsey was probably confused and hurt, unsure whose side to take. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I had spent 4 years proving I didn't need their validation. Now I was going to spend the next 4 years building something extraordinary. Not to spite them. Not to prove anything to them. But because I deserved it. Because I had always deserved it. And finally, blessedly, I believed that. 2 weeks later, I walked into the Marcello Group boardroom with a 60-page proposal and a heart full of fire. The concept was called Mario's Legacy, a fast, casual Italian concept that honored traditional recipes but made them accessible. A place where a single parent could afford to bring their kids for a good meal. Where college students working 2 jobs could eat something better than ramen. Where quality didn't require a 3-hour tasting menu and a $200 check. I pitched for 45 minutes. The board asked questions. pushed back on costs, challenged my market research. I answered every single question with receipts, data, projections. I had spent 2 weeks working 16-hour days to make this proposal bulletproof. When I finished, the room was silent. Then the CFO started clapping. The rest of the board joined in. David Chen was grinning like a proud father. "When can you start?" "Tomorrow," I said. We opened Mario's Legacy 6 months later. The opening night was packed. Press, food bloggers, industry people, and regular folks who'd heard about the concept through word of mouth. Mario was there, dressed in his best suit, crying happy tears as he saw his name in beautiful lettering above the door. My father was there with his wife, beaming with pride. David Chen gave a speech about legacy and hard work, and believing in people who believe in themselves. And at the back of the dining room, almost hidden by the crowd, I saw Kelsey. She was alone, nervous. She caught my eye and gave a small, uncertain wave. I excused myself from the group of investors I was talking to and walked over. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hi," I replied. "I wasn't sure if I should come," she admitted. "But I saw the article in the Times and I'm really proud of you, Camille." I studied her face. She looked different, older, tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "How are you?" I asked. "Honestly, not great." She laughed bitterly. "I got fired from my job last month. My boyfriend broke up with me, and Mom is—" She trailed off. "Mom is what?" "She's not doing well," Kelsey said. "She's been really depressed since Mother's Day. She doesn't leave the house much. She keeps talking about you, about how she messed up." I felt a flicker of something. Not quite sympathy, but not satisfaction either. "I'm sorry she's struggling," I said carefully. "But that's not my responsibility to fix." "I know," Kelsey said quickly. "I'm not asking you to. I wanted to apologize. For everything. For laughing when she put you down. For taking everything she gave me without questioning why you got nothing. For not standing up for you." Her eyes filled with tears. "You were my big sister, and I let her turn us against each other. I'm so sorry." I took a deep breath. "I appreciate that. Is there any chance we could, I don't know, start over?" I looked at her for a long moment. "I don't know, Kelsey. Maybe someday. But right now I'm building something. And I need to protect my peace." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I understand. But if you ever want to talk or get coffee or anything, I'm here." "Okay," I said. She gave me a sad smile and turned to leave. "Kelsey," I called after her. She turned back. "For what it's worth, Mom's choices weren't your fault either. You were just a kid. We both were." Something in her face broke. "Thank you." She left quietly, disappearing into the crowd outside. I stood there for a moment, processing. Then Mario appeared beside me with 2 glasses of champagne. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said, taking a glass. "Everything's okay." He raised his glass. "To new beginnings." "To new beginnings," I echoed. We clinked glasses and drank. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt completely, utterly at peace. 1 year after opening Mario's Legacy, I was named one of Forbes's 30 Under 30 in the food and beverage industry. The article featured a photo of me in the restaurant, mid-laugh, surrounded by my team. The headline read, "From Server to CEO, How Camille Built an Empire on Resilience." The journalist had done her research. She'd interviewed David Chen, Mario, even some of my old professors from Whitfield. But what made the article go viral wasn't the success story. It was one paragraph near the end. When asked about her estranged relationship with her mother, Camille pauses. "I don't wish her harm," she says carefully, "but I also don't owe her access to my life. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who can't celebrate you. That paragraph was screenshotted and shared across social media. Thousands of people commented with their own stories of family estrangement and choosing themselves. My inbox flooded with messages. People thanking me for putting words to their experience. People asking for advice. People sharing their own journeys from rejection to self-acceptance. I read every single message, and I realized something profound. My mother's rejection, as painful as it was, had given me something valuable. It taught me that my worth wasn't conditional, that I didn't need anyone's permission to be extraordinary, that the people who couldn't see my value simply didn't deserve access to my life. Mario's legacy expanded to 3 locations in 18 months. We employed over 100 people, single parents, college students, people who needed second chances. I made sure every employee had health insurance, fair wages, and opportunities for advancement. I promoted from within. I mentored young women who reminded me of my younger self. I created the kind of workplace I had dreamed about when I was 20 years old and exhausted. And I made sure that no one on my team ever felt invisible. My father became a regular fixture in my life. Sunday dinners, holiday celebrations. He met my team and became friends with Mario. He integrated into my chosen family seamlessly. We talked about my mother sometimes. He never badmouthed her, but he validated my feelings. He apologized for not protecting me better. And he showed up, consistently, in ways that mattered. Kelsey and I exchanged texts occasionally, cordial but distant. She was in therapy, working through her own realizations about our childhood. I respected her journey but maintained my boundaries. I didn't forgive my mother. People expected me to. People told me I should, that holding on to anger would poison me. That family was family. But I wasn't holding on to anger. I had released it that day at Mario's Italian restaurant. What I was holding on to was clarity. Clarity that some relationships are harmful, that some people will never change, that protecting yourself isn't cruelty, it's survival. My mother never reached out directly, but 6 months after the Forbes article, I received a letter. It was long, handwritten, full of apologies and justifications and explanations. She was sorry. She'd been depressed after the divorce. She'd made mistakes. She'd always loved me, even if she didn't show it well. She wanted a chance to rebuild our relationship. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and went back to work. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe someday enough time would pass that I could have a surface-level relationship with her. But not today. Today, I had a business to run, a team to support, a life to live. A life I had built entirely on my own terms. That evening, I stood in the original Mario's Legacy location after closing. The chairs were stacked on tables. The floors were clean. The kitchen was quiet. I thought about 20-year-old me, standing in a similar kitchen, wondering if I'd ever be more than a survivor. And I smiled. Because I wasn't just a survivor anymore. I was the author of my own story, the architect of my own success. And that story, that success, belonged entirely to me. No one could take it away. No one could diminish it. It was mine. So that's my story. The story of how my mother called me embarrassing at my waitressing job and had no idea it was my last day. How a moment of cruelty became the catalyst for my greatest triumph. People ask me if I regret how things unfolded, if I wish I'd handled that Mother's Day differently. The answer is no, because that moment wasn't about revenge. It was about truth, about refusing to shrink myself to make someone else comfortable, about standing in my worth even when the person who should have celebrated it chose to mock it instead. I'm 25 now. I run multiple restaurants. I mentor young people. I have a chosen family that loves me unconditionally, and I sleep peacefully every single night. If you enjoyed this story and it resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss another story. Your support means everything and helps me keep sharing these experiences. Drop a comment telling me your thoughts. Have you ever had to choose yourself over family? I read every single comment. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, you don't owe anyone access to your life just because they're family. Choose yourself, always.